How will you improve Illinois' physical condition with the state taking in roughly $1.2 billion less in revenue? Senator Brady?
Well, this is, with all due respect to my opponents, this is one area where I am a little bit different than them. Under no circumstances will I allow the General Assembly to impose any portion of that extension. It will fall off in a Brady administration, and I guarantee it. Now, it will cost approximately, depending on whose estimates you use, 1.6 to 2.1 billion dollars. It's a fair question. How are you going to pay for that? Well, the biggest area of support is the pension reform package that we supported. Again, I'm a little different than my other opponents in this race. I was the only one to support that package and help author it because I felt we needed to strengthen and solidify it for the retirees, but we also needed to make sure it was sustainable. Saving $150+ billion over the next 30 years makes it sustainable, but it gives us $1.3 billion in the first year to make sure that we have the resources to pay our bills, pay down the backlog of the bills, and get that job done. There's natural revenue growth. The Bureau of the Budget estimates that to be about $900 million in addition to that in that first fiscal year. So there are resources, if you want to use, that we can use to provide the fiscal discipline to make sure that income tax. But let's face this. We can reform Medicaid, and I want to work on that. I want to use medical savings accounts in the area of Medicaid to even further save state resources. But we are never going to put ourselves on a path that we want to be until we grow jobs. We have got to rebuild this economy. We've got to reinstill business confidence and consumer confidence in this state. We're the 5th largest state in the nation, but we've got one of the largest out-migrations and one of the largest unemployment rates in this state. We have to realize that businesses and families are looking for a state that has fair tax policies. Illinois is not fair. It's one of the highest in the nation. It has to come down if we're going to rebuild business and consumer confidence to rebuild our state's economy.
Obviously, we've got to grow our economy. We can't be rated 50th in the country, and I told you, complete overhaul of our tax structure. We're overtaxed, and we are greatly overburdened and overregulated. But one of the things that I have a strength in that I don't believe any other candidate has, and it's why Governor Edgar so strongly endorses my candidacy, is I know how to get a Democrat-led legislature to live within its means. I've done it before. When I was the chief of staff for Governor Edgar, we inherited a $1 billion deficit in a recession, and we left a $1.5 billion surplus in the state treasury, all without an income tax increase. We paid our bills in 17 days by the end of that administration, and for the first time, don't take my word for it, for the first time in the state's history, the credit rating of Illinois by Wall Street went up when Governor Edgar was the governor. And here's the most telltale statistic. Our unemployment rate was below the national average, well below the national average. I have a skill set of knowing how to get a Chicago-led legislature to live within its means. Along those lines, I have got to manage Medicaid. It is our state's largest expenditure. Folks, we spend more on Medicaid than we do on education in Illinois, a horrendous priority that's come about under 10 years of Democrat control. Fraud every day, as well as getting people who are on welfare in this state who are not legally eligible to be on it will be a priority of my administration. The New York Times says 10% of Medicaid is fraud. Can you imagine what it's like in a place like Illinois? I have got to get people off of Medicaid and off of welfare who are not legally eligible to be there so a single mom in Forsyth can have better medical care or a senior citizen. And I take those savings like I did under Governor Edgar and we move it into other programs. So it's managing this state with the Democrat legislature, downsizing our government as I've done before, and growing our economy. That's how you close that gap.
Well, I'll answer the question in that I don't want that income tax increase to stay. So everybody got that real clear. But I think that where Governor Quinn and this Democratic General Assembly made their big mistake was in January 2011 when they voted it into place. All they did was raise money. You look at 2011, the outstanding bills to those that deliver bread to the prisons or the school districts, community services for developmentally disabled, was $8.5 billion. They voted for an income tax increase. 2 years later, January 2013, the outstanding bills was $9 billion. So you see, all they did was raise money and didn't resolve the financial problem. I've negotiated contracts. That was a part of my introduction to you. That's what I did for a living for 25 years. I negotiated contracts, and I negotiated with some of the best on this planet. And the one thing I learned is you just don't agree to one thing and hope the rest of us are going to come along. I recognize that by the time I'm governor in January 2015, this income tax increase is due to go away, and I want it to. But then again, what's going to happen with regards to this public pension bill before I become governor? And I respect that we have a difference of opinion on it. I happen to don't think it's going to be constitutional. We'll let the courts decide that. What's going to happen between now and January when I become governor with this Pat Quinn, Democratic-controlled General Assembly? Are they going to get the spending and borrowing in check? I'm being very honest with you. I don't want the income tax increase to stay, but I may need to have some form of revenue as a part of a comprehensive package to put together where we're going for the long-term viability of this state. You look at your school districts right now and you ask them how far in arrears Illinois is in paying them their money. I see that I'm going to have to negotiate. But what I will tell you, I will not sign any revenue into law that is not a part of a comprehensible, name the words, auditable, verifiable resolution for the long-term finances of our state.
I guess the only clarification more than a rebuttal is Senator Dillard has said numerous times that he left billions of dollars in the checkbook. I think it's important to note that in the first 2 years of the Edgar administration, they inherited about a $350 million balance and drove it down to near $100 million in 2 years. But they did it, even that, while Senator Dillard was chief of staff, they did it by borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars by not making the pension fund payments. The problem is we can't play those mathematical games anymore. We need a governor who's going to be transparent with the finances and not balance the spending plan of whatever the governor is on the backs of pensioners, which is what it caused the $100 billion in unfunded liability that we had to deal with this last summer when it came to resolving that situation. So I just think Senator Dillard's facts need to be corrected, and the point being mostly that we cannot use pension monies that should be paid into the system to pay for pet projects of administrations, leaving at risk the pension funds of this state.
I have no idea what he's talking about. I will tell you we inherited $1 billion deficit, and if there was any problem in what we did, Wall Street, the professionals, the true professionals, would not have increased the state's credit rating for the first time in history. Governor Edgar was the first governor of Illinois ever, like an alcoholic, to say, hey, we have a problem here with our pensions. And Governor Edgar established in 1995, and I was in the legislature by that time, a ramp-up, which he said should be reviewed every year to make sure that all our pension payments are made. I don't believe Jim Edgar ever missed a pension payment, and today's pension hole, which hopefully was fixed by the bill that Senator Brady voted for, is about 9 times bigger than it was when Governor Edgar was the governor. So I don't know what numbers he's spewing, but the credit rating by Wall Street, by professionals went up, and there was $1.5 billion surplus, and the unemployment rate of the state of Illinois was below the national average. Those are the statistics, not Bill Brady, you ought to listen to.
I feel like I may want to yield my time to one of these other two guys to keep it going. I'm not going to do that. I think I was I know I was very clear on where I stood on in regards to the income tax thing. The only thing that I would comment on is, if I may, is that, we need to be looking at where we're going to take Illinois. We need to look at how we're going to be putting Illinois back into a stead that we can be proud of. Not what happened 2 decades ago. Governors of 2 decades ago, that's history. Let's look at where we're going to take Illinois tomorrow.
Would each of you name 3 specific actions you would take to improve the business climate in order to attract new employers and retain the jobs that we have? Senator Dillard.
I begin by using ADM as an example. We had ADM come over to Springfield, and I was on a panel that started to begin, and the Democrats wouldn't let us do what we really needed to do on workers' compensation. But ADM testified that comparable operation in Decatur to comparable operation in Indiana, their workers' compensation costs were 7 times higher in Decatur than they are in Indiana. Senator Brady and I are members of the Senate Republican Caucus. We said this week we will not cooperate with the Democrats on a budget until they give us something called a causation standard or an apportionment standard on workers' compensation that every other Midwestern state has. We will have a blue ribbon panel, top to bottom overhaul of our tax structure. People like the retiring CEO of the Illinois Chamber, Doug Whitley, former head of the Taxpayers Federation. He is the former head of the Illinois Department of Revenue, former president of Ameritech. I saw somebody around here with an Ameritech shirt on. I like nostalgia. And Doug's the CEO of the Illinois Chamber. So top to bottom overhaul of our tax structure. And I already mentioned that my running mate, Jill Tracy, a great businesswoman from Quincy who grew up in tiny Anna, Illinois, in southern Illinois, is going to be the repealer. And we are going to look at every regulation this state nickels and dimes families and farmers and businesses to death, and we're going to have a regulatory climate that's more attuned with the rest of the Midwest to make us the competitive advantage that everybody ought to have that does business, big or small, in Illinois.
Great. 3 things. Number 1, I'm going to appoint directors of state agencies that are going to do their job, whether it's corrections or natural resources or aging or homeland security. But before I sign their appointment paper, they're going to look at me in the eye and commit that they're going to do everything they can do to create a job and retain a job, not be the bureaucratic barrier to a job in the state of Illinois. I will tell you about that in just a moment here. Number 2, my Lieutenant Governor, Steve Kim, business lawyer, he is going to be in charge of the Governor's Office of Job Creation and Retention. So, you're a small business, you're an agriculture facility up in Stevenson County, you're a trucking company in Rock Island County, you're a florist in Kane County. Exactly the stories that I've heard on the trail where their own government has been the barrier to these small businesses to create 1, 2, and 3, and 4 more jobs. So what does this small business person do? The ombudsman will be the lieutenant governor's office. No further appropriation, grow the budget within that. They will be able to run interference within their own government. Number 3, the 3 things I tell you I will do. I'm going to be the chief marketing officer of Illinois. We've got great assets. We've got good things about Illinois, vocational technical training. We've got a lot of nuclear power. We've got a lot of water. We've got ourselves all of these good things. But when Chris Christie comes flying in from from New Jersey, you know, we all get a little weird on it. Rick Perry comes parachuting in from Texas about taking our jobs. Who do we have going up against these two Republican governors? Pat Quinn. I'm going to be the chief marketing officer. And let me also tell you in regards to workers' comp, that is an area we need to address, and I'm assuming that the Democrats will continue control of the General Assembly. I'm going to work at the causation. I want to get it done. I want to get it done. But if I can't get it through that General Assembly, remember, I appoint the members of the Workers' Compensation Review Board. I appoint the adjudicators. I will appoint men and women that will follow the rules and do the job, but will also look at what they can do to create a job and retain a job in Illinois.
Well, the first thing's already been done. Businesses were walking away from Illinois because we had a $100 billion unfunded pension liability that someone had to pay. They needed a solution. We provided them with one. The second thing is the tax cuts. We've got to leave more money in the pockets of small businesses particularly who pay taxes on the individual income level because they're sub-S or LLC and families to rebuild our economy and bring a vibrancy back to that. We've got to balance our budget. We have to have the fiscal responsibility to bring confidence back, and we have to live within our means and deliver on what we promise rather than promising to state agencies and others monies that we don't give and putting them even further hardship. Work comp. We absolutely need causation. We can provide a fair work comp program that takes care of injured workers but doesn't overtax businesses in providing those jobs. Term limits. We want to bring confidence back to Illinois. Businesses want a state that's not corrupt. We need term limits in Illinois to end career politicians. Fair maps. We need an corruption in Illinois by fair maps, where we don't let politicians draw maps for their own interest, but we let an independent body draw them for a community's interest. Energy jobs. Driving over here, I saw a couple oil wells. You know, we've got a great opportunity in this state to really build a vibrant economy and energy jobs, but the Quinn administration, through regulatory processes, has stifled that opportunity. We need to have a governor who will make sure we do it in a fair but an efficient way to bring jobs back to this state. My running mate, Maria Rodriguez, is a mayor. I believe that jobs are created at the small business level, but I also believe that entrepreneurial working with mayors, she's going to work with local units of government to find out what we can do to better empower local units of government to create jobs. And then lastly, when it came to the Cook and Collier counties wanting to keep jobs with the CME and with Sears, we passed win-win solutions. But when it came to Decatur and Macon County and ADM, they fell on a deaf ear with Governor Quinn. We need a downstate person in the office of governor to bring back all of Illinois, someone who will work for all of Illinois. I supported that legislation that would have brought 500 jobs over the next 5 years to Decatur and Macon County. That's the kind of governor we need.
I voted for the ADM bill, too.
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Let me go back to the ADM thing. And this is what's so infuriating, because I didn't get it finished, but we came up with a proposal that was sponsored by Andy Menard, a downstate Democrat, who really provided a winning solution for us. We were going to keep corporate jobs in Illinois, and we were going to replace them, the 100 lost, with 100 new jobs immediately and 100 each year thereafter. But Governor Quinn, a Chicago politician, refused to even hear that when we supported them in their areas to keep jobs in their area. We need a governor who will fight for win-win solutions for all of Illinois.